The Part 8, The Philosophy of Christ. Millions assert that the philosophy of Christ is perfect, that he was the wisest that ever uttered speech. Let us see. Resist not evil. If smitten on one cheek, turn the other. Is there any philosophy, any wisdom in this? Christ takes from goodness, from virtue, from the truth, the right of self-defense. Vice becomes the master of the world, and the good become the victims of the infamous. No man has the right to protect himself, his property, his wife, and children. Government becomes impossible, and the world is at the mercy of criminals. Is there any absurdity beyond this? Love your enemies. Is this possible? Did any human being ever love his enemies? Did Christ love his when he denounced them as whited sepulchres, hypocrites, and vipers? We cannot love those who hate us. Hatred in the hearts of others does not breed love in ours. Not to resist evil is absurd. To love your enemies is impossible. Take no thought for tomorrow. The idea was that God would take care of us as he did of sparrows and lilies. Is there the least sense in that belief? Does God take care of anybody? Can we live without taking thought for tomorrow? To plow, to sow, to cultivate, to harvest is to take thought for tomorrow. We plan and work for the future, for our children, for the unborn generations to come. Without this forethought, there could be no progress, no civilization. The world would go back into the caves and dens of savagery. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out. If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off. Why? Because it is better that one of our members should perish than that the whole body should be cast into hell? Is there any wisdom in putting out your eyes or cutting off your hands? Is it possible to extract from these extravagant sayings the smallest grain of common sense? Swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is his holy city. Here we find the astronomy and geology of Christ. Heaven is the throne of God, the monarch. The earth is his footstool, a footstool that turns over at the rate of 1,000 miles an hour and sweeps through space at the rate of over 1,000 miles a minute. Where did Christ think heaven was? Why was Jerusalem a holy city? Was it because the inhabitants were ignorant, crud, and superstitious? If any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. Is there any philosophy, any good sense in that commandment? Would it not be just as sensible to say, if a man obtains a judgment against you for $100, give him $200? Only the insane could give or follow this advice. Think not that I come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother. If this is true, how much better it would have been he remained away. Is it possible that he who says, resist not evil, came to bring a sword? That he who said, love your enemies, came to destroy the peace of the world? To set father against son and daughter against father? What a glorious mission! He did bring a sword, and the sword was wet for 1,000 years with innocent blood. In millions of hearts he sowed the seeds of hatred and revenge. He divided nations and families, put out the light of reason, and petrified the hearts of men. And everyone that hath forsaken house or brethren or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. According to the writer of Matthew, Christ, the compassionate, the merciful, uttered these terrible words. Is it possible that Christ offered the bribe of eternal joy to those who would desert their fathers, their mothers, their wives, and children? Are we to win the happiness of heaven by deserting the ones we love? Is a home to be ruined here for the sake of a mansion there? And yet, it is said that Christ is an example for all the world. Did he desert his father and mother? He said, speaking to his mother, Woman, what have I to do with thee? The Pharisees said unto Christ, Is it lawful to pay tribute unto Caesar? Christ said, Show me the tribute money. They brought him a penny, and he said unto them, Whose is the image and the superscription? They said, Caesar's. And Christ said, Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Did Christ think that the money belonged to Caesar because his image and superscription were stamped upon it? Did the penny belong to Caesar or to the man who had earned it? Had Caesar the right to demand it because it was adorned with his image? Does it appear from this conversation that Christ understood the real nature and use of money? Can we now say that Christ was the greatest of philosophers? 9. Is Christ our example? He never said a word in favor of education. He never even hinted at the existence of any science. He never uttered a word in favor of industry, economy, or any effort to better our condition in this world. He was the enemy of the successful, of the wealthy. Dives was sent to hell, not because he was bad, but because he was rich. Lazarus went to heaven, not because he was good, but because he was poor. Christ cared nothing for painting, for sculpture, for music, nothing for any art. He said nothing about the duties of a nation to nation, of a king to a subject, nothing about the rights of man, nothing about intellectual liberty or the freedom of speech. He said nothing about the sacredness of home, not one word for the fireside, not a word in favor of marriage, in favor of maternity. He never married. He wandered homeless from place to place with a few disciples. None of them seemed to have been engaged in any useful business, and they seemed to have lived on alms. All human ties were held in contempt. This world was sacrificed for the next. All human effort was discouraged. God would support and protect. At last, in the dusk of death, Christ, finding that he was mistaken, cried out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" We have found that man must depend on himself. He must clear the land. He must build a home. He must plow and plant. He must invest. He must work with hand and brain. He must overcome the difficulties and obstructions. He must conquer and enslave the forces of nature to the end that they may do the work of the world.